Okay, so welcome back to this mainframe tutorial series. The last video we've been through executing some simple mainframe automation. We've been through modifying the UI. I've reverted my model back to its original state, and what we're going to do is start putting in some logic that we want to essentially test. So at the end of this process, we get a successful login, or maybe we get ourselves a failure. So those are the two states that we can sort of end up in. We will also have some different types of conditions that potentially we want to test. So for example, we might have a valid user, we might have a valid password, for example. And I'm going to overmodel this a little bit. There's different ways that we could get the same results, but we're going to have a valid user and a valid password. But let's also just assume that actually, as part of this process, we could have an invalid user and an invalid password. Okie dokie. So there will be therefore I guess a mixture of different scenarios that we want to essentially test in combination. So actually, from my capture screenshot, I'm going to bring this guy down to here, and we'll relay this model out so it will look kind of nice and pretty later on and easy to read. I've got my demo user, who I know is valid, but I might also put in a version of this which is now my fake user. I'll go for fake in this sense, and let's also just make it nice and clear under here that it is a fake user. It's easy to kind of go and see. We may also do then is, let's tie this up to here and here, but I'm also going to tie it up to here and to here. Okay, so these are crossing over each other. In this sense, I've now got valid users potentially going to invalid passwords, or I've got invalid users potentially going to valid passwords, right? So there's a nice combination that we want to go and check out there. So once again, into my into here and into, need two of them, and tie this up like so, except for my invalid password. Of course I want to actually set an invalid password, so I have this one as, again, fake. Put in something more real, and I'm going to put this as my fake user password. Okay. Everything else we want to kind of keep the same, so we'll copy these. So now actually the end point here is not necessarily going to be a failure, so I'm just going to call it end. And the final piece I'm going to do is I'm going to say whether these things are, so for example, this fake user password, I'm going to set the data type of this as invalid. And the same for my user. So this is, I'm essentially saying that this is not correct, it's bad. Let's relay out this tree so it just tidies it up for us. We're going to rerun our tests. So previously I think we came out with 1, maybe 2 tests. Now we've got 5, so we've got 3 negative tests, and if I highlight that, we'll see that this fake user is being used, and so on and so forth. And as before, let's just go and run this particular automation code. Now this one's going to take a touch longer because we've got now 5 tests to run through. You can watch the logs as they sort of go through this particular process. So that's now done. Again, we could go and store that into our Git repo if we wanted. If we come under our test section here, we've got our 1135 tests, which are the ones that we just ran, and let's have a look at some of these details now. So, for example, we're entering some credentials in here, and that one logged in, so that was a successful one. Let's see if we can't find one fake user here. So we've got fake user with a valid password. So again, when we get to try and enter in our fake, this is actually as far as it goes. So we're happy that that's been asserted, and this test has been passed because we haven't been able to actually log in. So as part of the next video, we'll take a look maybe at some different mainframe screens that we go into, but this gives you the ideas for how we're starting to do some logic over the top of a particular process, and now how we're able to really test our login process. Next up, we'll take a look at some of the different types of ways that we can build different types of automation, so different screen clicks, tabs, enters, screenshots, etc., etc., on slightly more complex screens.